Dylan is the young 19-year-old who vanished over Memorial Day weekend back in 2022. He was a farmer. He moved to the desert town of Lucin, Utah, which is in northern Utah, kind of near the Nevada border, when he vanished. And his family tells me that this morning his remains were found near or in Lucin in a remote area. That's all the information that we have at the moment from his family.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody, where we cover true crime, mystery to the missing. 6 trips, 12 days, and hundreds of miles covered between our drone and on land, and we only covered just a small portion of that vast desert in Lucin, Utah. You can never fully grasp how big and desolate this area is until you actually see it for yourself. It has its own unique, beautiful scenery that I really enjoyed each time we went out there, although it came with a heavy toll as there was a missing teenager, Dylan Rounds. Sadly, the odds of finding Dylan Rounds were basically slim to none due to the vast desert in northwestern Utah. Here was our first day searching for Dylan Rounds, who had only been missing for a week at that point. One of our first spots we went to after speaking with a few locals is what is known as the Lucin Pond. It is the only natural water source for many miles. In the middle of the vast desert sat this small little oasis with trees and a neon green pond filled with spaghetti-like moss. As we stood in front of this pond, we had no idea what would be discovered in this pond many weeks later would be one of the most shocking and crucial pieces of evidence in this case. Dylan Rounds, whose family was from southern Idaho, grew up ahead of his years and matured much quicker than other boys his age. After learning how to farm, when he grew old enough, he was ready to start his own. But sadly, after that dream was beginning to take shape, his life would be snuffed out in an act of a snap moment by someone he and his family had previously helped out. This person, James Brenner, a 59-year-old man who was living in a trailer at a location known as the grain shed. Dylan Rounds arrived early Saturday morning to put his grain truck inside that shed, and after speaking with his grandmother at around 6:50 a.m., his life would be snuffed out less than 30 minutes later by the hands of James Brenner. And how did they find out Brenner was the killer? Well, Dylan Rounds' phone would be recovered in the Lucin Pond about 3 weeks later after his disappearance. The same pond we stood in front of twice before it was found. On that phone was a time-lapse video which showed Brenner cleaning a gun and blood on his clothing. This video was time-stamped with approximately 7:20 a.m. Brenner would eventually be arrested on gun charges, then later charged with homicide and more. Throughout the first few months, Dylan Rounds had still not been found despite many searches conducted by myself and many more other entities. Although there was some clues as to where his remains could be located, the vast desert of Lucin was not going to give up that secret so easily. Brenner had once mentioned it would be easy to get rid of a body in the wash and no one would ever find them. A wash is made by water carving into the ground through many, many years, and these so-called washes were littered throughout the vast desert of Lucin. Although his family had potential leads to where his remains could be, despite many months of searching and pursuing those leads, the family knew the best chance of finding Dylan Rounds was to talk to the only man who knew where he was. They would attempt to bargain with James Brenner as a last-ditch effort, a mother's plea to finally bury her son with dignity. But sadly, Brenner was not talking. Brenner would have some hearings pushed back in 2023 due to lack of representation by a lawyer. This was really tough on the family. But Brenner had a new hearing set for this year that was upcoming. And before that hearing took place, here is the breaking news that happened on April 9th, almost 2 years since Dylan Rounds was murdered.
I'm Nate Eaton with EastIdahoNews.com. We have some breaking news to bring you right now. The body of Dylan Rounds has been found. Dylan Rounds, his remains have been found in the remote area of Lucin, Utah. And his family tells me that this morning his remains were found near or in Lucin in a remote area. That's all the information that we have at the moment from his family. Of course, Rounds had been missing since May of 2022. The 19-year-old spoke with his mother on the phone right before he vanished, and his family has spent the past 2 years searching for answers. His mother, Candace Cooley, tells me that as part of a plea agreement with James Brenner, the man accused of killing Dylan, Brenner led the investigators out to the site where the remains were on Tuesday morning, which would be today, April 9th, in case you're just tuning in, or you're watching on another day. They got there, they found those remains, and they have been recovered. Now, Brenner is charged with aggravated murder and abuse or desecration of a human body in connection to Rounds' death. Let me show you just how remote this area is. That's where Dylan was farming. That was his camper. That was his truck. And you can see there's not much around this area. It really was a desolate area. I spoke with Dylan's family. They, of course, are a lot of emotions tonight. This has been such a mystery for 2 years now. But Candace did ask me to convey, we thank everyone for their support and love. We are grateful we now have Dylan's body and can bring him home as we continue our fight for justice. And unclear when Mr. Brenner will appear in court again. There was a hearing scheduled for this month, but at last check that was delayed. However, now with the recovery of Dylan's body, it could be had sooner rather than later. We will continue to follow this story and bring you the latest developments. We have reached out to the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office to see if they have any comment. What usually happens in these types of cases is they cannot confirm right away 100%, like, we know the ID. They'll send the body away for identification, and then it takes a day or two to get 100% confirmation. So that might be the case.
As one who has spent time with the family, I couldn't be happier for them, and may Dylan Rounds finally rest in peace. After my last search for Dylan Rounds with Texas EquiSearch, and knowing the few possible leads, would likely require a massive amount of manpower and technology to recover his remains due to the vastness of the desert. As one missing teenager has been recovered, there are still a vast amount more that need our help, including this young man, Aiden Clune, missing out of Wells, Nevada. He went missing 1 month prior to Dylan Rounds. Although their case is not connected, their families both share a special bond. We are going to be looking for Aiden Clune this weekend, and if you would like to support this channel to help aid in this mission, there are many ways in the description of this video. Please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.